Hey everybody, my name's Fred, and today I'll be discussing two major U.S. Supreme Court cases that shaped how the police use of force is evaluated. The first one is Graham versus Connor, and then the second one will be Tennessee versus Garner. These cases are pretty much essential for understanding the legal standards that guide the way law enforcement actions go and protect citizens underneath the Fourth Amendment. To start, Graham v. Garner was decided in 1989. The case introduced the objective reasonableness, something like that. I can't really pronounce it right. Standard for evaluating police use of force. The case involved Death Thrones Graham, a diabetic man who was injured during a police stop while experiencing a medical episode. The court ruled that the use of force must be judged based on whether it was reasonable from the perspective of the of a reasonable police officer, or police or officer on the scene, and not with 2020 hindsight. This means that the courts must have considered the totality in the circumstances, including the severity of the crime, whether the suspect poses immediate threat, or whether the suspect is actively resisting an arrest or attempting to flee. An important thing about it was the officer's intent or motivation really didn't matter. Only whether that the force was used was objectively reasonable in that moment. And the ruling shifted that the focus from subjective judgment to a more fact-based analysis, which has a lasting impact on police procedures and legal reviews. Section 2 is going to be Tennessee versus Garner. Section 2 is how I remember this one. So, I believe Tennessee, it wasn't Texas, it was Tennessee versus Garner, was decided in 1985. The case dealt specifically with the deadly force case. It involved a 15-year-old boy who was shot and killed by the police while fleeing after a suspected burglary. The officer admitted that the boy was unarmed, but believed he might escape, which is it's iffy there. The Supreme Court ruled that deadly force cannot be used to stop a fleeing suspect unless the officer has probable cause to believe the suspect poses a significant threat or death or serious physical harm to the officers or others. The decision changed police policies worldwide. Before Garner, many departments allowed officers to shoot any fleeing felon. After the ruling, departments had to revise their use of force policies to ensure deadly force was only used when absolutely necessary and justified by a real threat. Now I'm going to kind of talk about the comparison and the impact. Both cases were rooted in the Fourth Amendment and emphasized protecting individuals from unreasonable searches and seizures. However, they apply to different types of force. Graham v. Connor was on all levels of force, focusing on whether it was reasonable. And Tennessee v. Garner sets specific limits on the deadly force, especially in pursuit of situations. Together, the rulings guide how officers are trained, and and incidents were investigated, and how courts determined whether force was lawful. They also play a major role in the public debates about police accountability and reform, even today. And I guess one thing I could add about this, I'm not sure if you guys might have saw it, but I remember on TikTok, there was this one guy who had a knife, and he was threatening this old guy. He let him go and he ran, and these police officers were running after him, and he still had the knife, and it was in a residential neighborhood, and he was running towards another house that had an open garage, not even a mile down the street. Like, it was probably like a football field, like maybe a football field or two, and so a football field and a half. No, it was about a football field, I'd say, away. And so he was running, and the first thing these police officers do when he lets go of the guy and he starts running is that they start shooting at him. And I don't know how these police officers missed every shot. It was open field, and he shot into the direction of the road, and there was a car that passed by after he let off some rounds. So it was like, it's kind of crazy. I was hoping that he didn't hit any of those people in the car. He didn't. But what's called, I say that's a good example of using deadly force on fleeing somebody when they have a weapon of any sort. I think, especially if they're in a residential area or something like that. Now, if they're playing in the middle of nowhere, and like let's say you're in Arizona or New Mexico, and he's just running into like the wilderness, it's like I don't really know if you need to use deadly force for that, because he ain't gonna hurt nobody. He might hurt himself, but he ain't gonna hurt nobody. What's it called? So yeah, that's just what I think about it. And they ended up they didn't even shoot the guy. He ended up being able to go into the open garage, and the open garage had a door that was leading into somebody's house, and the house was open. The guy who was in the garage ran inside. I don't know if he locked his door, but the police got there, and I think they tased him, or they tackled him. He still had the knife and everything. I thought it was pretty dumb. I thought they probably should have shot him. Um, yeah, I don't know how he missed that many shots, because those officers are firing off around a lot. But continuing. In my conclusion, Graham v. Connor and Tennessee v. Garner are foundational cases that continue to shape law enforcement practices today, as I said. And understanding these standards helped us evaluate police actions fairly and ensure that constitutional rights are upheld, and throughout the country. And I will say thank you guys for listening to me out. Y'all have a blessed evening. May God be with y'all.